Retro Hangover is supported via Patreon by listeners like you. We would especially like to thank patrons Lyle McCarnes, Randall Quiggle, Tony G, Studstill Smash the Milkman, Keith Gasper, Raging Demon, Mast Keaton, Disky Mara, Ozzy Garcia, JC, Megan Caruso, Andrew Laguori, Lunchbox, aka The Disgruntled Gamer, Adam from The Good, the Bad, and the Backlog, Rick Firestone, Dave Jackson, Jenny E, Retro Overdrive, Soha, Parallax Puddles, The Emperor, Storm Beagle, Matt, aka Stormageddon, B. Ross and Van Fernal from Super Garbage Day, Gary Heather, the Retro Vixen, Eric Guess, Nomad from the Retro Wildlands podcast, Ash Event, Alan Bingham, Mike the Rep from Backbreaker Gaming, Ryan Player One, Low 5 Alex, Alt, Redder Dreaming, and Oh Me. Your continued engagement and generous donations are deeply appreciated.
Open your ears and crack some beers. You are listening to the most recent episode of Retro Hangover.
Retro and classic gamers, welcome to the podcast where we aid adventurers against alleging alimony aimlessly. This is Retro Hangover. I am your co-host, Chris Copeland, with special guest, the only host of the Main Quest podcast and chili dog enthusiast, Keith Gasper, and, as always, your host, Shane. Oh no! Dick Knuckle Dragon! Salter!
Oh yeah, this is happening.
Oh no.
Oh no. Knuckles. Oh man, you know, the image, the head canon that I am now creating, if you will, of Sonic just like skipping out on alimony payments is fucking hilarious. He's just like, gotta bust fast.
We're just gonna ignore Dick Knuckle.
I'll get to that in a second. I thought that he was going to say that too. I was just going to say that that's why Amy is always chasing after Sonic, because, you know, try and get the alimony payments. That's why he's running away. But Dick Knuckled, I thought you were going to say you're imagining Knuckles. And how many heads does an echidna have? I think it's 4.
It is 4.
And each one of them being, and each one of them being like a white gloved fist from Knuckles with like a little, could you imagine?
I enjoyed your intro, Chris. You almost did a Sonic voice. It almost sounded like a Sonic voice.
You know what? That should be the running thing. From now on, it's just going to be a Sonic voice for all other intros, because who doesn't love Sonic the Hedgehog?
I can't imagine.
Everyone loves Sonic. Can't think of a single person who would not.
I'm sweating right now.
Ever. Speaking of which, welcome back to the show, Keith. Great to have you here. So happy to have you back on.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure people saw the title of this podcast and heard my voice and were like, oh no. It's have gone the other. Well, hopefully they haven't. But yeah, thank you guys. Thank you for having me back.
If we are going to talk Sonic, I think you're kind of like the standard stand-in for every single Sonic episode moving forward. And I think I've scheduled a Sonic R episode for next year. So
which I have played.
Hopefully you can be back for that. Oh, see? Yeah.
Perfect.
Because I know your love and admiration for the series is just ever present. And so
you can put it that way.
It's my way of saying I'm sorry. As I trail off. But Shane, how about you? How are you doing?
Oh, you know, I'm doing all right. I think I'm better now that this experience has come to a close. But yeah. How about you? How you doing?
Well, that gives like a ringing endorsement about how this episode is going to go down. Why do you have to be such a fuddy-duddy, man? Like you are.
mean, okay, listen, don't count it as foreshadowing, okay? Like I'm just saying that I have opinions. I am a middle-aged white man with a microphone, Chris. I am entitled to say things on the internet, or so I'm told.
Yeah, but do you do jujitsu?
No, I do. I practice a very secretive, mystical Eastern art that very, very few know of. I'm not allowed to speak of it.
So, I mean, you're halfway there. Okay. So if you did jujitsu, I mean, I think it'd be right there. BJJ, as they call it.
I say, do I need to like shave my head? Is that a requirement?
Possibly.
Okay.
You should find out.
I don't think I want to.
Get our ratings boosted. Oh.
Really? You think I don't know about that. I feel like there would be a minor revolt if my luscious locks disappeared.
There might be.
I mean, remember the last time that I streamed and I had my hair tied back and there were certain people that were absolutely losing their mind?
That was a little weird. Keith, do you think you would join us for a video game conspiracy podcast where we shave our heads and do MMA?
As long as it includes Ashton and Omi, yes.
Nice.
I can't get them both on the same show. That'd be really difficult.
Yeah, I wonder why. They're the same person.
I couldn't tell you. I have no.
They're the same person.
I can't confirm or deny that. I will have both of them reach out to you about that. Well, through me first, and then I'll let you know what both of them have said.
And I've definitely thought about a video game conspiracy podcast in the past, but you have to be, creative in order to pull something like that off. That's definitely not something that I have.
I don't believe you. But before we carry on with this nonsense, we're going to get into what games that we have been playing today, as we are wont to do. Also, we always start out with our guest before getting into what games we have been playing. So, Keith, what games have you been playing lately?
So I took an oath to not purchase any new video games this year, in the year of our Lord 2024, and work exclusively on my backlog. Starting with Metroid Prime. I played through the Metroid Prime trilogy, a couple months back at this point. That I played through the Donkey Kong Country trilogy, which technically there's more than 3 games in the Donkey Kong Country trilogy, but I played 1, 2, and 3, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to keep going with this trilogy idea. And over the weekend, I started Silent Hill. So I'm going to play Silent Hill and Silent Hill 2 and Silent Hill 3. And no more than that. As I've been told by the internet that I really don't need to play any more Silent Hill after that. So
gotta go to 4.
4 always gets the shaft.
Oh, really? Well, maybe.
I mean, it's okay. Full disclosure, it is not like at the same level as the first 3 games, I would argue, but it is the last one that Team Silent was like involved in, and that counts for something. I didn't think it was that bad.
Which one is that called? The Room?
The Room.
Okay. Maybe I'll put that on. We'll see how Silent Hill fatigued I am after playing 3 in a row, because they're a little longer than the Prime games and definitely Donkey Kong Country series. And yeah, I mean, I've never really played a Silent Hill game. I played the original game, the first game. I played it for maybe a couple hours when it came out, around the time it came out, and I was way too scared, and so I just never came back to it until this weekend, and played some of 3, and it was kind of like the same boat. I was too cowardly and turned it off after like an hour or so. And man, it's funny. Like, I'm having fun with it in like a way that you're probably not supposed to have fun with a Silent Hill game. It's just kind of goofy to me. Walking around the actual town, and I'm kind of like, is this it? And then you're just like, I started noticing all of the signs on the storefronts of Silent Hill, and there's stuff just like big gazungas. And there's one
Really?
there's one sign that just says ghoul, and I'm like, what did something get lost in translation here, or were they just having fun? It's some really bizarre stuff. But then I started thinking, because I'm like, well, Silent Hill is supposed to be, psychological horror. Maybe, this strip club called Big Gazungas or whatever is part of Harry Mason's like psyche, and Silent Hill's like fucking with him or something. I don't know. I don't know the backstory to Silent Hill, and I don't know anything about Harry Mason, which is also like, this game is very light on dialogue, which I was really surprised by. There's a lot of me kind of like playing the game like, wonder why they made that decision. What are the other perplexing things that I thought was funny is just how prevalent Harry Mason's face is in the entire game. He's on the front of the box art, right? And then when you go into your inventory screen, they have like, what do you call it? Like the EKG meter or whatever, like kind of like Resident Evil has, like where it shows like your lifeline. But superimposed over that graphic is Harry Mason's face. And then when you go into the options for like the sound and brightness and stuff like that, just in the background is just Harry Mason's face floating around. I'm like, somebody was really proud of this graphic. It's just really like, you had no other iconography to use at all, like nothing. But all that, even though I'm having fun making fun of it, it has hit I beat the first boss, which is also like, I understand why Silent Hill has bosses, because you kind of have to have some sort of skill checkpoint, to make sure you're understanding like exactly what you're doing. But it feels weird to just have like, oh, here's a big monster in a Silent Hill game. It just feels more Resident Evil than Silent Hill, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does.
Kind of.
To be fair, I always thought it was a little out of character too, because generally speaking, you want to avoid combat as much as possible, and then they kind of force you into a situation where you have to do that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but it took a minute for me to finally like settle into the atmosphere of the game, and because it doesn't, the first part of the game is, I would say, kind of very boring, just walking around the town and, well, I got to go find these keys, I guess. But once you get towards like the back half of the school, then I'm like, oh, okay, like I know exactly what this game is going for, and it is pulling it off pretty well. I would say that I don't want to call it a soundtrack, but like the ambience of the game is doing a ton of heavy lifting, and it's working. So yeah, I'm looking forward to finishing it off and moving on to what some people would call one of the best horror games of all time, Silent Hill 2.
We may have said that.
Yeah.
Some people might.
Yeah.
Yeah, you might have said that for about 2 hours one time.
At least. Speaking of 2-hour conversations, Shane, what have you been playing?
Man, not a lot, actually, other than trying to play through the game du jour. I don't really have a whole lot going on. I've checked out a few mobile games recently, and I'm trying to stick to the not shitty monetized ones, if at all possible. And so I can make a pretty decent recommendation for a game called Candies and Curses. It's actually a really like cute pixel platformer roguelike, but it's built specifically for mobile, so there's no scrolling. Like each level is just the size of your screen, but the mechanics are actually pretty cool. Like your character, her name's Molly, and like she's always moving, and so it's a bit like Super Mario Run, but not as annoying. I didn't like that game, but in that she's always moving, and so you kind of like hop up and down levels by swiping up or swiping down, and you can change direction by swiping left or right. And the whole deal is like she's trapped in this haunted house, and she has a flashlight, and the beam of the flashlight that goes out in front of you kills the ghosts and ghoulies and whatever. And so it's like this tactical thing of like trying to jump around the different like levels of the stage and hit them with your flashlight without getting hit too often yourself. And because it's like a roguelite thing, you go through a run and you collect certain, like ectoplasm is one of the currencies that you can use. And I think souls is one of the other ones. And you use those to buy like new flashlights or lanterns you can use and upgrade your character. And like it kind of unfolds the story a little bit more. And eventually you break the curse on the haunted house and everything. And it's pretty cool. And I think I want to say I spent maybe like, I don't know if there's, I want to say it was like $5 or something on it. And I think it was pretty well worth it. So it's a cool little bite-sized game. The pixel art is really well done. It's got a lot of like charm to it. So yeah, that's my recommendation for right now. That's kind of the only thing new that I've been playing recently.
Like the Google description for Candies and Curses. It is a 2D arcade roguelike game featuring chaotic, sugar-rushed ghost slaying.
That's pretty accurate.
It's very
Slayer.
Oh, that was the other thing I forgot about. You also collect little charms that you can attach to your flashlight that gives you like different buffs and stuff, which is pretty cool. So.
As for me, I'm back on that Auden train. I'm trying to get through it, I guess, because the plot finally got good. Like the villain finally got good. Only 35 hours into the game. So apparently, instead of looking to see Suikoden for inspiration, they looked at Final Fantasy 13, which, hey, look, we all have different tastes in terms of storytelling. I don't know. I'm looking forward to doing some sort of RFR guidance for the game because I really haven't done many of those lately just because I haven't gotten through many games lately. But this writing is just like, and I've played through a little bit of Suikoden 2 recently. And it's like, what happened? Like, why is it such like a steep cliff down? It's the same people making the games essentially. So it's like, I don't understand why the quality isn't quite where it was back with Suikoden 2. And I'm a big Suikoden 3 fan. Maybe I need to replay it because maybe the writing isn't as good there. But according to a lot of Suikoden fans, that's where it kind of drops off. But it's just kind of like, I'm looking at these two games and just knowing Suikoden 2 is somewhat known, like for the first two, that they have bad translations or localizations or however you want to term it, especially for the time, just because they were more rushed back then. They didn't have the same care as they did later or they do today, generally speaking. And it's just like, it's too saccharine, I guess. It's like it can get dark, but it's just kind of like, I don't know, there's something off about it. I can't quite put it into words. I'm not that smart, but there's just something that feels like they didn't put their full effort into really getting into telling the stories they were telling in the PS1 era, which is somewhat disappointing. Gameplay is still fun. It's just not as fulfilling without the motivations that you typically have in a more character driven JRPG. I don't know if a lot of Euden Chronicles fans also feel that way, and that's a little bit disappointing. I mean, after the disappointment I had with Sea of Stars, and I know that's going to be more of a spicy take because I know people love Sea of Stars. And for me, I'm not saying it's a bad game. I think Sea of Stars is like a solid 7 out of 10. But like, I was a major backer for both Sea of Stars and Euden, and it's like, it's not like hitting those 9 or 10 out of 10 feelings for me, which I was expecting. So I guess I got to temper my expectations a bit, but I don't know. I'm still going to try and see it through the end just because I did put a ton of money into it and I don't regret it because all the tchotchkes that come with it and whatnot. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. It's Aiden. And I kind of feel bad too because I'm supposed to be playing Romance of the Three Kingdoms 4 for the Saturn, and that game is intimidating the piss out of me. And it is really making it hard to make more IO Saturnalia episodes. So I need to figure out how to play that game because I want to continue to make those episodes. But fuck you, Koei. I don't know what you were doing before you were making Dynasty Warriors games, you fucking nerds. Because I don't know what to do. You're just like, here's a map of China and menus. Like, now what? The game's like, yeah, menus. I don't know, but creating a character was fun. I got to, create myself and my kids, and now they're my officers. I don't know what to do. So hopefully I have an update for you all next time. I doubt it because that game is nerdy and I'm not that nerdy anymore. And I'm very scared of it. because it's something I can fuck up easily. Anyway, that's what I've been playing. So
I'm just going to say create a character stuff is overrated. There's going to be a lot of hot takes. I have a feeling for the rest of this episode tonight. I don't know. I feel like there's going to be some accepted takes. But yeah, as far as hot takes go, just give me a character. I don't want to create my own character.
Yeah.
You do the heavy work and you give me a character.
Oh, I know. I chose. You don't need to create a character. I chose to. Because it was there. Yeah.
Oh, I'm just saying in general. I'm just saying developers, you tell me who to be. I don't want to make my character.
Yeah, you're the artist.
Take me on an adventure.
You be the artist. Give me a character. By the way, I don't universally agree with that. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it works. But Keith, I do agree with you. I prefer to have a character I need to play as opposed to creating one, because it just makes for awkward conversations. Have not played Baldur's Gate 3, by the way. And speaking of having multiple characters to choose from, we are going to get into our game du jour, which is Sonic Adventure. And we always give a brief history about the game before talking about it proper. And Shane, are you alive?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Could you be so kind as to give us a brief history of Sonic Adventure?
If I must.
You must.
I think we can all agree that Sonic the Hedgehog was a big deal. Well, still is a big deal. Love or hate the quick blue rodent, the series is a staple in the zeitgeist of the video gaming hobby. You know him, you have feelings about him, and likely the games as well, and you probably immediately think of the developer Sega whenever you hear the name. After all, Sega and Sonic are pretty much synonymous and have been for quite some time. That time certainly extends to the mid-90s, and despite that direct attachment, Sega could not put together an effort that could even seemingly resemble anything close to what could be considered a new proper entry into the main series for their struggling Saturn. While Mario had gracefully transitioned into the world of 3D, and a new Sonic Light-flavored marsupial in Crash Bandicoot provided a similar feel, Sonic itself was mostly silent, or disappointing, or both. Sonic 3D Blast, despite being an alright game in its own right, was received as more of an insult to fans expecting a three-dimensional experience rather than a genuine attempt at moving Sonic forward. And as for Sonic R, a racing game featuring Sonic and friends, well, it sure has a soundtrack. There was also the infamous project Sonic Extreme, being developed by STI, that looked more like an attempt at a vomit simulator than an actual game. Thankfully, that got canceled. As for Sonic Team, they were too busy making Nights into Dreams. That, and Yuji Naka wouldn't allow STI to use their engine to help in the development of Sonic Extreme. Mostly because Yuji Naka is notoriously known to be an absolute cunt. There was also a belief within Sonic Team that the concept of a Sonic the Hedgehog game had become outdated in the era of 3D. However, in mid-1996, after Nights had wrapped up completion, Takashi Iizuka proposed a new direction for Sonic, one that would focus more on feeling more like an RPG and including story elements. Development would start for the Saturn in 1997 using the Nights engine, but quickly ran into issues due to the hardware being too limited for their vision. By then, however, Sega's next generation console had already begun development, and Sonic Team moved over to take advantage of the additional resources and power the Dreamcast would be offering. To superior hardware, the team would also grow. Starting with a total of only 20 personnel, it would blossom to over 100 in total by the end of development, one of the largest totals towards game development at the time. The game, titled Sonic Adventure, was so important to Sega and its perceived importance to the upcoming Dreamcast that Sonic Team was able to request and get more RAM so the console could run Sonic Adventure to fit their vision. Sonic Adventure's development was kept under wraps as much as possible, with it not being unveiled until August 22nd of 1998 at the Tokyo International Forum, only 4 months before the Japanese launch of the Sega Dreamcast. However, due to some development issues, Sonic Adventure was not able to release alongside that launch and was delayed until its official release on December 23rd of 1998. Even then, the Japanese version was riddled with a slew of glitches and bugs due to the crunch that the development team went through to get the game to market. The state was bad enough that Sega had to fly out members of Sonic Team to the US to form a new team, Sonic Team USA, exclusively to patch and localize the game prior to its North American release. That version of the game was heavily promoted, including a deal with Hollywood Video that allowed US gamers the opportunity to rent a Dreamcast prior to launch, July 15th, 1999 to be exact, and play a limited edition of Sonic Adventure to generate hype. As discussed a few episodes ago, the Dreamcast would launch in North America on September 9th of 1999 with the retail version of Sonic Adventure. It was a smash hit, both critically and commercially. Critics rewarded it with an 87 in aggregate, with many saying it was a perfect showcase for the system. GameSpot would also name it the runner-up for Best Console Platform Game of the Year award, falling short to Rayman 2. Commercially, it became the best-selling game by a wide margin, with 2.5 million units in total sales. But, as we all know, the Dreamcast was not long for this world. But apparently Sonic Adventure was. Sonic Adventure DX would be ported over to the GameCube in January of 2003. The game would also see another port in 2010 to the Xbox 360 and PS3, as well as a Steam release in 2011. Ports of the game are generally considered to be rather terrible, but still serve as the most accessible means to play the game today, especially the Xbox 360 and Steam versions, as they can still be purchased in stores to this day. And that is your brief history of Sonic Adventure.
All right. Thank you for that brief history, Shane. I forgot to mention at the top of the episode that this is the conclusion of Dreamcast month. Thank you, everybody, for celebrating the 25th anniversary of the extremely noisy and white console of piracy that we all know and love. Sonic Adventure, I've heard a lot that it had some influence on the Dreamcast development. I didn't really see that too much. Then again, I didn't do too much digging while writing this. It doesn't surprise me they were able to get more RAM into that, because you hear a lot of that about developers looking into new systems and trying to kind of mold it to see what it's trying to do. And it's interesting because I don't think we'll get into this in graphics. I think Sonic Adventure, for the time especially, is a very good looking game. Yet Soul Calibur still kicks the shit out of it. So it is interesting to see that, hey, we're making this game specifically for this hardware, but it's still like not the best looking game at launch. Not a bad looking one, just not the best. So I do think that's a little intriguing, but kind of a gap in time release as well, slightly.
I also wanted to note that I read when I was reading about its developed in 10 months, which is, I mean, for normal, like 2D games back in the day, like you wouldn't even really blink at that. Even 10 months is somewhat longer for like a retro game in the early 90s, but I just wanted to say that up front because that might have to do with some of the stuff that I say a little bit later about this game.
Yeah, probably same. It does make me not ever want to play the Japanese version, for sure.
Oh, for sure.
I don't want to touch that. That makes me nervous. I'm extraordinarily nervous. What I also didn't find, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, in the brief history, maybe y'all can remind me. Wasn't there versions of Sonic Adventure that couldn't be read by Dreamcast when it came out because they were so pressed for time that like they didn't press them correctly. So you put them into the Dreamcast and it just couldn't be read.
Oh, that one I'm actually not sure about.
I think I heard that before.
They might have been only on the CDRs.
Possibly. Limited Run Games did the work for that. Like,
Yeah.
they went back in time and tried to help Sega get Sonic Adventure out to save the Dreamcast. What do you mean the CDRs didn't work? Damn it. But I think I heard that on Still Loading podcast episode. I think Corey mentioned something about that over there. But anyway, let's get into our own personal experiences with Sonic Adventure. Keith, I'm gonna have you go. I'm gonna have you go last on this. I'm sure that you have a great story. Because normally we just hold the guests for the last one on this one. So how about you, Shane? What's your personal experiences with Sonic Adventure?
Oh man. Well, considering I never played a Sonic game almost my entire life. So I almost made it this far.
Until you started a retro gaming podcast.
Yeah, I know that was my fatal mistake. I mean, it's like Thanos. It's an inevitability. Just like one day we'll have to talk about Sonic 06 probably and just get that out of the way. But anyway,
you're dooming us.
Yeah, you know what's going to happen. So I had no visibility into this at all. I didn't own the system at the time. I didn't give a single shit about Sonic. So it wasn't until much later that I came around to this one, and I want to say, oddly enough, now that I mentioned Sonic 06, I think I remember buying a copy of Sonic 06 used at GameStop, like for the lulz, and then brought it home and played it for a bit. And I think after that, I got a copy of Sonic Adventure DX and played that for a bit. I want to say I got maybe 3/4 of the way through Sonic's campaign and never did anything else. Because I was like, boy, this sure is an experience that I'm going to talk about more a little later, but that's pretty much it. Honestly, I think the most personal experience I have with Sonic Adventure is watching Let's Players play it, if I'm being perfectly frank.
Huh.
Oh no.
Oh no.
Oh no. How many times are we going to have to hear that? I'm preemptively apologizing.
I'm not.
Because you're going to hear it.
I want you to hear it a lot. I'm not apologizing. I'm going to grace you with some awesomeness. Is that the totality of your experience, Shane?
Up until extremely recently, yes.
Okay. All right. So for myself, I think I don't know if I said this in the Dreamcast episode. My mind is like empty half the time. I got this game with the Dreamcast and played the shit out of it. Because if you had a Sega Genesis, I wouldn't call myself a Sega kid per se, because I had a Super Nintendo and I had a Super Nintendo before the Genesis, and I stopped playing the Genesis before I stopped playing the Super Nintendo while they were still like active and getting new games and so on and so forth. So I wouldn't call myself a Sega kid, but I had a Sega Genesis and I actively played a Sega Genesis. The N64 was my console of choice for a little bit in the 32, 64-bit generation before going over to the PlayStation for obviously the just myriad of RPGs, which was the genre I was more interested in. But like, if you played a Sega Genesis at all and you liked your Sega Genesis, the Sonic the Hedgehog franchise was very much burned into your brain. And I loved me some Sonic the Hedgehog. I love Sonic 1 and I love Sonic 3. We've already talked about Sonic 2. But I know I loved those two games. And I love Sonic as a concept. Everything about Sonic, there's just something that was very near and dear to me. So when the Sega Dreamcast would launch, yeah, of course I'm going to pick up Sonic Adventure. I'm going to play it to death. So I did. Like, I made it all the way through. I don't know what I did with the Chow Garden. I can't remember that far back, but I know I did get 100%. I completed it just like I think many other people did, because this was a big deal to people who had played Sonic when they were younger, or who had invested in Sega Genesis, because as at the brief history indicated, Sega was Sonic. Sonic was Sega. And for at least in North America, because in Japan, they don't give a shit about Sonic. Let's be real. That's why Sega was probably successful with the Saturn over in Japan because they didn't have a Sonic release forever. But over here in North America, like the talk was for the entire duration of the Saturn from 95 to 98 was, why hasn't Sega released a Sonic game? Or when they did release a Sonic game, it's like, when they're going to release a real one? You haven't tried real Sonic games yet. So like Sonic 3D Blast came out and, it didn't go over. Sonic R, no one cared about that. Sonic Jam, like I didn't even know Sonic Jam had a 3D version of Sonic in it until like 5 years ago. Like I just had no idea because that wasn't advertised at all. It was just like, here's like 4 Sonic games in one. And then later you're like, oh yeah, there's like a prototype of Sonic Adventure in there, kind of. It's like, oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that until well later. Also because like no one really talked about Saturn games at the time. So yeah, this game was a huge deal for me as a Sonic kid. That normally would end it. But then like years later, I can't remember if I got it in 2013 or 2014. I was getting back into collecting, and after I got a couple consoles, I got my Master System. I don't think I'd gotten Genesis yet. I may have, but I was going more into the Sega games because like collectors back in 2012, 2013, and that big retro collecting boom that started back then, people did not give a shit about Sega games. Like it was all Super Nintendo, N64, kind of GameCube at that point. Not really. GameCube was just starting to get picked up. You could still find a GameCube for like $10 back then. But in terms of Sega games, no one gave a fuck about Sega. Nobody. You could get Sega games on the cheap. And so I was looking in the market for a Dreamcast, and I was able to win an eBay bid that came with like 20 Sega Dreamcast games and 2 Dreamcasts with like 3 controllers for $60. I think it says $60, but it was like nothing. It was like just nothing compared to what you would get that for today. And so I hooked it up to this CRT TV that still have the CRT TV and started playing some Dreamcast games as one would. And one of the first games that attracted the attention of my son, who at the time was like really little, and he had gotten into retro games with like fighting vipers, but beyond that, nothing really stuck. But then he got into Sonic Adventure, and he just absolutely loves Sonic Adventure. So this was one of the games that I was able to pass down onto my son that he enjoyed. And for whatever reason, he continued to attach himself to Sonic games that were released contemporaneously. And I think he's played through every single one released since. Like, I think we have Sonic Frontiers because he got that on day one. Sonic Generations is a game that he still plays to this day. So like Sonic Adventure is really one of those games that has been one of those like just centerpieces of my gaming life one way or another. No matter how I feel about it as a total product, it has just been this amazing thing in my life one way or like there's no way to explain it. It's just there. Sonic Adventure is a tremendous game for me. It's very important, and I hold it to the utmost depths of my heart. It's a game I totally love, despite about a lot of the things I may say about it later. With that long soliloquy, I guess it's time to turn it over to Keith here and ask him, what is your personal experience with Sonic Adventure?
Holy shit. I'm glad you opened your heart, Chris, with all those nice, warm, fuzzy feelings.
I like it.
And then you turn it over to me.
Yeah.
You're going to get nothing but despair and empty feelings.
We need the contrast. We need the contrast.
No, I mean, so, I've talked about my experience with so far the 2D Sonic games on my show. To a lot of people's surprise, you come to find out I wouldn't say I was a Sonic kid. I wouldn't say I was a Sega kid either. Like you, I grew up with multiple consoles in my house. So it was just more video games, I always gravitated more towards the Mario games, yes, but Sonic was always right there. I was never going to turn down playing any of the original Sonic games. And so it was just the natural way of things where Sega announced that they were going to have a new console. And of course, I was going to get it. we had, except for like what was it, the Sega, no, the Master System. I don't think we didn't have a Master System, or either I was just too young to remember it. But we pretty much had everything up to that point, including a fucking Game Gear. Didn't have a Pico. Did not have the Sega Pico, unfortunately.
That's a shocker. Yeah.
Yeah, I was so excited for Sonic Adventure. It had been 5 or 6 years since like the last real Sonic game. And having played Mario 64, it felt like there was just a brand new frontier of like 3D platform games on the way. And I'm like, oh, of course. Like, yeah, Sonic is going to make that jump too. It's going to be like, Sonic was never like Mario. Mario was never like Sonic. So it was just so exciting to see like exactly what Sonic was going to be like in 3D. And, I still remember like the Dreamcast commercials where they would show like it was they were like inside of the Dreamcast, and there was like some sort of like Matrix like rave party going on with like basketball players and like the NFL 2K players and shit. And I think Sonic was the DJ, or maybe Tails was the DJ. Either way. And they would show like little clips and stuff. And then of course there's like the infamous Emerald Coast scene with the whale. And I'm like, man, I gotta see that whale. I gotta run away from that whale. I have to. And so we got the Dreamcast, we got Sonic Adventure. I think we also got House of the Dead 2 and Blue Stinger with the Dreamcast.
Of course you got Blue Stinger.
I think we also got Blitz. I don't know if that launched with their Dreamcast.
It did.
Though. Oh, okay. So there was Blitz as well. Either way, yeah, I went for Sonic almost immediately. I didn't care about any of the other games. So I mentioned, it had been 5 or 6 years since the last Sonic game, and that means I had grown up, and Sonic did not grow up with me. And, I'll get into a lot of that later, but I did not care for Sonic Adventure. I played the shit out of it. I completed every storyline, did the supersonic stuff, and I just did not care. I was like, grown up me is saying this isn't for me. And that's what I was saying back then. But I was more like, this is gay, because everything was gay back then. Which is weird because, you know what? Never mind. That's for another podcast. But anyway, so hello, Adam. So I shouldn't say we. I always end up dragging my brother into things because he also was the one playing Sonic Adventure. But anyway, yeah, I just didn't care for any 3D Sonics after that. I felt like I had basically left the franchise. And I played a little bit of Sonic Adventure 2 at like a kiosk when that game was released. And I'm like, this kind of seems like more of the same. And I just never returned to a 3D Sonic game until basically this year. Yeah, that's my history with Sonic Adventure. I was a hater before it was cool to hate it, which I'm not proud of. That's the thing, right? That's the thing about growing up, is that I can now vocalize exactly why I don't like the thing that I don't like, instead of being, an edgy 15-year-old, and being like, man, this is for babies. This sucks.
It's okay, man.
And yeah.
Well, at least I'm so glad that gamers have moved beyond calling games gay as a means to just easily dismiss them. I'm so glad we made it past that in 2024. Actually, can see a lot what you're talking about. I don't want to dismiss that, because I think that there are things about Sonic that aren't maybe universally appealing. Like it definitely was having its demographic. Like it definitely had it. And some people have certain feelings towards that. And then some people really dive deep into it. Just look up Rule 34 and other things, and you'll find that Sonic fandom has its audience for sure. But that's not something that's like everybody. So if it turned you off, like, God. I get it. What's that?
Dude, That reminds me, I might
no.
be misremembering this, but I'm pretty sure that the official Sega like social media account like posted something fairly recently, some like meme image of Sonic like looking up stuff and being like my face when I look up the fandom or some shit like that. It was fucking wild.
Oh no.
I'm refraining from saying "oh no" anymore. That's it. I'm cutting it off.
I didn't even mean it. I didn't even mean it that time. Oh shit.
And Sonic was just sitting there, just like, oh yeah, this is happening.
Yeah. Speaking of the plot thickening and getting into the stories that are being told, let's get into the plot, the writing. I'm going to get into just reading what the plot for these games are. I tried looking in the manual, by the way, but apparently the US manual, I don't know if any other manual has it, but at least the US manual does not have the story. What happened? I thought this was like the great thing about manuals back in the day. I couldn't find it, but it has character descriptions.
I mean, to be fair, the game, when you return to the game after having turned it off and continue your story, it does kind of have like
it does.
Previously on Sonic Adventure.
It does. No, I mean, that's actually cool.
In all honesty, I actually wish more games would do that.
Yeah, I do. I do like RPGs, especially.
Yeah, come back after having not played for months in the middle of like a 30-hour campaign, and you're just like, I have no idea what I'm doing.
Just follow the arrow. What's the plot of this game? This is from Wikipedia, by the way, and I'm going to read it verbatim so I don't get this incorrect. Dr. Robotnik seeks a new way to defeat his longtime nemesis, Sonic, and conquer the world. I'm going to try doing the Sonic voice. During his research, he learns about an entity called Chaos, a creature that, thousands of years ago, helped to protect the Chao and all-powerful Master Emerald, which balances the power of the 7 Chaos Emeralds. When a tribe of echidnas sought to steal the power of the emeralds, breaking the harmony they had with the Chao's retained by using the emerald's power to transform into a monstrous beast, Perfect Chaos, and wipe them out. Tikal, a young echidna who befriended Chaos, imprisoned it in the Master Emerald along with herself. Robotnik shatters the Master Emerald to release Chaos and tests the creature's natural form on the city of Station Square. When Sonic sees local police fail to defeat Chaos, he and Tails work to stop Robotnik from empowering it with the Chaos Emeralds. Knuckles, the only remaining echidna, sets out to find the shards of the Master Emerald and repair it. Robotnik activates a new series of robots, including one named Gamma, and orders them to find Froggy, an amphibian who ate a Chaos Emerald. Froggy's owner, Big, seeks to find him as well. In Station Square, Sonic's friend Amy finds a Flicky being pursued for a Chaos Emerald in his possession and decides to protect it. When both are captured, Amy convinces Gamma not to work for Robotnik. Gamma helps her escape before seeking out and destroying the other robots in his series, sacrificing himself in the process. Tails, meanwhile, foils Robotnik's contingency plan to destroy Station Square via missile strike. I'm going to hold off there because that just spoils the entire game. Not that it matters, but you get the idea. Robotnik's up to no good. He resurrected some ancient monster, and now you as Sonic and Pals have to go find it. Radical.
Oh my god. Dude, is Flicky?
Yeah, it's Flicky.
The titular Flicky from Flicky.
Yes. Yeah, you know that the Sonic the Hedgehog series is Flicky? Everything's actually technically a Flicky series.
Oh my god. It just hit, like when you're talking about the Flicky, like I was like, why does that sound familiar? And then I'm like, oh yeah, that's a Sega game.
Yeah. When you think about
with the bird.
Yeah, think about the birds that come out of the robots in the first Sonic. Yeah.
And
what are you rescuing in Sonic 3D Blast? It's a 3D Flicky game.
I have to go now.
Well, Keith's mind is blown about Sonic's relationship with Flicky. Shane, what's your thoughts on the plot and writing of Sonic Adventure?
Fucking man. Okay. It's there. I don't know. The story's like whatever, man. Okay, here's the thing, right? Is like I mentioned this, I think, offhandedly prior to us recording. It kind of really bothers me that there's just a lot of very obvious like Deus Ex Machina happening where it's just like, oh, the thing that is needed to progress our plot line suddenly appears for no goddamn reason. Anyway, moving on. And like that happens so many times where it's just like, oh, you need a key card to get into this other building. Why do you need to go in the building? Unclear, but the key card suddenly appears in a bush. You could go get it now. Like, oh, okay, cool. That's cool. Like, did we just not try? Like, it really bothered me from like a narrative point of view. And I feel like this is, you know, maybe not the hill to die on in a fucking Sonic game, but like, why, like, why? Narratively, it's so fucking disjointed, right? It's just like, they had an idea. Like they had an idea of where they wanted to go with this story. Why in the world could they not find a way to like sensically get there? Right. Like, I don't know. That's actually what blows my mind. The other part of this, and this is, I'm going to talk more about the gameplay portions of this later, of course, but from a plot perspective, I was actually really bummed about the different playable characters, because in my mind, I was like, oh, all right, this is kind of cool.
Me too.
Right. Like I see what they're doing. Right. You're like, oh, okay, you could play as Sonic. You get the whole main story. You get the idea. And then it's going to be like, you get to see other viewpoints of the story from like the other characters, and it's going to flesh it out. And they're going to add things to it. And that's really cool. That's a great approach. Yeah, no, they don't really fucking do that much at all. It's mostly just like, you're gonna do the same thing again, and in some cases, like with Tails' campaign, it's just like retconning the story, like kind of, where just things happen differently because now you're playing as Tails, even though like Tails and Sonic were both there during that event, but events play out differently now because you're Tails, I guess.
Yes.
None of this makes any fucking sense.
No. The story's trash.
You don't like the Quentin Tarantino-esque style of writing?
It's trash.
I would if they did it right.
It's a Saturday morning cartoon show made for kids. I don't think there was really any like meaningful discussions about how plot should flow other than Sonic's story.
It's shonen for 8-year-olds.
Yeah.
Okay, but here's the thing: is that it could have been good. And this is going to be a through line through a lot of my thoughts, I think, about this game for the rest of this discussion, is that this could have been really good. Like I see it. I see where this could have been good, and it just falls flat. And I wouldn't even say at the 10-yard line, because I don't think it makes it quite that far even, but it makes it, you know, like 3/4 of the way there and just completely fucking fumbles it, like on every count. And it's actually kind of disappointing. Like, I'm being full transparency here, like not just like I'm gonna meme on this fucking game and be like, haha, Sonic suck bad.
We wouldn't be the first one.
Well, I know, and I wouldn't be the first time I've done it, frankly.
Right.
I mean, in full transparency, I actually like unironically enjoyed this game for at least some of it, and I wanted to continue enjoying it, but the game like would not let me. And like the story is also part of that, where, like I said, I really think that idea is cool of taking that sort of, to, you know, borrow Keith's thing here, the Tarantino-esque sort of storytelling of like, let me give you one side of the story and then we'll do another one and another one. And they kind of build on each other and then you bring it all together at the end. That would have been really fucking cool, but they didn't do that.
Yeah, because like the whole entire Takal thing that you find out later with the girl Echidna and the protecting of chaos, and that's told really haphazardly in the execution of everyone else's plot. You don't get that unless you watch everyone else's plot. I mean, it's interesting, it's pretty cool, but again, I just think that it feels like in development they made the game for Sonic, and then as they were going along, they'd be like, you know what would be cool if we added extra characters, and they're like, well, how do we implement this? And like, well, we don't fucking care, we'll figure it out. And so there's like no thought.
Actually,
go ahead.
Actually, you don't know how close to being right you are about that.
Oh my God. Okay.
At least in the case of Big the Cat, they literally added Big the Cat because they thought players would want to kind of take a break from all of the action. And so they're literally just, let's just put in this slower character at the last minute here. And it makes me wonder if that was the case with any of the other characters.
I feel like that's definitely the case for
certainly
Amy.
Feels that way. Yeah, it definitely feels that way. Because like the rest of the campaigns, I guess if you want to call them that, genuinely for the most part feel very like tacked on.
I'll get into that in gameplay because I don't hate them gameplay wise, but plot wise, yeah, absolutely.
Oh,
Okay, we're gonna have big disagreements there. But like in terms of plot wise, like yeah, it feels tacked on, and it doesn't feel fully fleshed out. It feels very half baked, with the exception of Gamma. Gamma's not bad. Like it actually has a full cycle to it. Like it's not like poetry, it's not fine art, but if you're talking about like your basic ass plot telling for a 3D platformer game or action game in Gamma's like case, whatever you want to call it for Gamma, then it's not bad at all. Like that's probably the most fully realized independent plot from any of the other characters, and that can be appreciated. But yeah, all the other ones, it feels like it's just, well, oh shit, we couldn't tell all the story with Sonic, as I already said, and like let's just figure it out with the rest. And like some of the cases, like when Robotnik's taking the Chaos Emeralds from Tails, you're like, dude, Tails cannot be this fucking stupid. Like he's supposed to be the genius mechanic, and he's just running with the Chaos Emerald like out in front for no reason. And here's Robotnik like, aha, I stole it from you. He's like, no, like what did you expect? You dumb motherfucker.
But that happened every time.
Yeah.
Whether it was him or Sonic, or actually, I think some of the other characters were involved in this dumb fuckery too, where like the only reason that Eggman succeeds as far as he does in this game is because all of our protagonists are dumb as shit. They just like drop things and they're like, oh no. And it's like 5 feet away from them, and they just stand there and watch Robotnik grab it. And you're like, really? That's how we're moving this plot along? Okay, cool. That's good.
I can't believe I'm going to be the voice of reason here. And I'm just be like, they had 10 months, you guys. They had 10 months. Yeah. The
Gettysburg Address was written on a napkin.
They definitely were trying to overachieve with this game. You know, the thing that confuses me is that this kind of seems like a soft reboot in a lot of ways, just because of the way you guys were just talking about the characters and how they kind of seem to have regressed. I mean, why the fuck is Knuckles getting tricked again by Dr. Robotnik? He already went through that whole character arc, and now it's kind of the same thing. And we're talking about the Master Emerald again. I don't know if that's what they were going for, as far as like a kind of like a soft reboot and reintroducing all of these elements again. I mean, I'm going to kind of just agree with you guys on what you said. It just, a lot of this stuff seems wholly unnecessary. There's a lot of these B and C plots that you could have just raveled into one, maybe 2 campaigns if you wanted to have another character.
I think it's just crazy to me too that like the what I'm going to refer to as the main campaign, right? As you play as Sonic, even me playing sort of like leisurely through it, I want to say finished it in a few hours. And that's I'm going to say my first time, because even though I played through it before, it wasn't really a genuine attempt. And so this was, for all intents and purposes, my first time playing through. It didn't take me that long. So it's crazy because like to have the rest of the game essentially kind of feel like something that was sort of just attached is really weird. I mean, given they had 10 months, okay, I guess, but I don't know, man.
Yeah, I mean, compared to Sonic's campaign, I mean, some of the other campaigns are like 4, 5 stages. You may as well just not have it there.
I think that's a good time that like, let's just go right into the gameplay here. I'll briefly describe it as we continue that conversation along. Sonic is your more traditional 3D platformer, except he moves extremely fast. Same with Tails, except he has like slight deviations where he can fly and go through rings and stuff like that. And he has to race Sonic or Robotnik or whoever in order to get there. Amy is slower than Sonic and has a hammer, and you're trying to escape a robot that's trying to capture you. Who else? You have Gamma. Gamma is like an on-rail shooter, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of,
It's
except
like
it's
Rez,
not on rails.
if you've ever played Rez.
Yeah, it's
Well,
it's a open world res.
I mean, it may as well be.
kind of open world res. You're on a timer. Knuckles, you have to find emeralds that are hidden throughout the stages, and they're distributed in a method of RNG. We'll definitely talk about that. And then lastly, you have Big the Cat, an oddly poorly implemented fishing game from Sega, which at the time was making some of the best fishing games on the planet, which just blows my mind. But okay, that's the basis for the fishing games. Not fishing games. That's the basis for the game. Keith,
I'd rather be playing a fishing game if I was honest.
I mean, for Big the Cat exclusively, I think I would. I'm not that harsh on it, but
I'll
let you. Oh well, I'll let you continue that thought. I know you're probably going to be the most negative here, but you were talking about kind of like how is everything poorly implemented. I might have left off on the wrong mental note there, but like I'll just let you start diving into the gameplay.
I made a promise to myself that before I come up with any negative points for the game, I'm just going to read some Sonic trivia to whet everybody's palate.
Oh, fantastic.
Let's see. I can just pick. Oh, you know what? This isn't going to work at all.
No.
There's a Sonic Adventure facts on Twitter. And now that I'm kind of going through these, all of these facts work against Sonic Adventure.
Tremendous.
It ruins my entire thing here because it just, so there's one here that says Amy has no animation for floating atop wind gusts, which is that's because the game is broken.
But does she ever have to go on a wind gust? Does that ever happen?
In the Windy Valley, it has a picture of her standing in the entrance to Wind Valley. And she's just standing there as if she was just standing on the ground. And then there's another one that talks about Big the Cat crashing. You can crash the game using Big the Cat. So I'm not going to use this Twitter feed at all.
Why? It's telling the truth, Keith.
Ryan Drummond said in an interview that this is his favorite Sonic game.
I don't even know what that is.
No, neither do I.
Good. Okay, I thought I was missing out on something.
In the beginning of Supersonic's story, even with the English voices activated, Sonic will yawn in his Japanese voice. I talked about it's going to be hard for me not to compare this to Mario 64 because, I mean, just at the time, again, thinking just how exciting 3D gaming was going to be, and everybody was so excited. And just how do you translate Sonic to 3D? And that's also a question I've been thinking about up to this recording tonight. Is it maybe, I don't know if this is something you guys want to ponder on as well, but this has been the formula for 3D Sonic for 2 decades.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any other way to actually translate the speed and the platforming in any other way than what we have here in Sonic Adventure? And I really can't
separate them.
Separate them?
Yes, that is my answer, is separate the two gameplay styles. That's been my stance about this for a while, because I've never liked the idea that they've always tried to make this work and it never fucking does. Like, just separate the two. Have it so that when you are doing platforming, like, have separate stages, like when you have, or even separate sections of stages, right? And they kind of do this somewhat, but it's not enough. So have sections where you're just doing pure platforming, where you're not going to have that real janky, like, speed, like, wind up that you end up doing to the point where he becomes almost uncontrollable. Just throw that the fuck out. Just have, okay, well, yeah, almost, unless you hit a specific spot on the track that you can't see, that you just fall through to your death every fucking time in the first level. Anyway, no, like, do that, right? Just do have dedicated platforming sections where you just actually have good, tight platforming controls, and then have separate sections that are meant for speed that can be almost on rails, but like make them, you can still have some agency over how it works. Like some of the sections where they do like the rail grinding and stuff in some of the other games, that could be cool if done better. I think having them separated, I'd be fine with. But when they're trying to put both of them together all the time into some cohesive thing, it like never works.
I think it works at times. And, I'll say this. I think the Sonic campaign, gameplay wise, is the best out of all of the campaigns because it becomes obvious in the other campaigns that the levels were designed with Sonic in mind and not, anybody else really.
Mm-hmm.
because in those other campaigns, you're basically playing through an abbreviated version in a lot of cases, some of the same stages, not all of them, but some of the same stages. And as far as making the jump to 3D, I think the Sonic things are, as far as Sonic Adventure, is as good as it gets. Obviously, as the franchise continues, I played a little bit of Sonic Colors, and that game controls phenomenally. I should actually probably go back and finish that game.
Yeah.
Compared to this, I mean, it's a crapshoot, man. It really is. I mean, there was, when I was playing this, I died on Emerald Coast just to no like fault, but the game is just fucking letting me die. Like just shooting. I would go through, I think like it was like the first or second like big loop you go through. I mean, the game was just shooting Sonic down through the loop into the water and killing him.
Mhm.
Jesus Christ.
It happened like 3 times in a row. And I'm like, you have to be fucking kidding me. Glitches aside, I mean, there were other glitches. There was a couple of them when I was playing as Knuckles as well. It's not game breaking. There are things like dying doesn't matter in this game. Even having lost all of my lives, it's just like, all right, whatever. It's the first level. But Sonic is just like, I don't even know what the word is. He's like too floaty, but also like really jittery. And at times, on a lot of the like on rails, like sections where it's just, it's just a showpiece, basically. There's a lot of, not showpieces, set pieces. Just a lot of like speedy set pieces showing like the loop-de-loops, just showing how fast Sonic can go. That stuff is really cool. There are some areas where I wasn't sure if the game wanted me to actually hold the control stick or if I was supposed to let go. And so there were moments where I would hold the control stick and then I would get, glitches where he would like fly off, or sometimes he would just almost like magnetically connect with like one of the railings. Like there was no like real spook. Like he would either just, sometimes controlling him was great. Sometimes he would just suddenly move like 90 degrees. It's like, holy shit. Like what the fuck happened? Like I barely touched the control stick. And there were times where I would let go of the control stick in those sections and then he would just like fall. He would just stop. And I'm like, am I supposed to hold this or am I not? The instructions are very unclear.
Yeah.
And the homing attack kind of works. I'll say this. I played Shadow the Hedgehog recently. You want to talk about a fucking broken game. I mean, the homing attack in that game is dog shit. So comparatively, I think Sonic Adventure works, especially since it was the first time that they were actually doing something like this. But the camera is a little bit, it's got some jankiness to it. The camera's doing one thing while Sonic is doing another thing, and you just kind of lose track of him, I found, most of the time.
Yeah, my favorite is when the camera gets stuck in geometry. That's fun.
Yeah, that happens. Or Sonic gets stuck in geometry because the camera forces him to get stuck in geometry and you can't get out. That's also fun.
Yeah. And so, okay, I want to kind of dovetail off of what Keith's been saying, because for the most part, I pretty much wholeheartedly agree with this assessment. I think floaty but somehow jittery is absolutely accurate because that's how he feels almost all of the time.
That's 100% true. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, but okay, to the game's credit again, and this is the part where I like genuinely am kind of bummed about this, is of all of the campaign things for the different characters, I actually enjoyed the Sonic campaign for the most part. Like it's actually fun when it does things right. The unfortunate thing is that it doesn't do it right very much, but there's a lot of really good ideas. And that's where I think this game really needed more time in the proverbial oven, because like the transitions from the more like traditional, I say traditional, this was the first time they did it, but for the sake of argument, traditional Sonic gameplay, right, in a 3D space, and then transitioning to some other things like the on rails shooting with the plane with Tails, that could have been really fun. And I was actually kind of excited for those levels, because I was like, oh yeah, I like a good on rails shooter section. This will be fun. It controls like fucking dog water though. Like it's so bad because it's so hypersensitive that you can't, there's no precision, there's no nuance to the control whatsoever. So you just like a little tap of the stick and they just fly across the screen, and it's almost impossible to like accurately target anything.
So before we all continue on here, I think we should at least disclose what version of the game we played. Probably like just knowing how awesome the Dreamcast controller is, what controller we use, because I did not use the Dreamcast controller. I think, Keith, did you played this game on original hardware, correct?
Yeah.
Via a mode?
Yes.
Okay. Same. Did you use original Dreamcast controller or an aftermarket?
I had a Dreamcast controller.
Okay. I used the Retro Fighters aftermarket controller. Shane, how about yourself?
I played the Sonic Adventure DX on Steam with an X input controller.
Okay. So this is like, it can be sensitive to a point. I did not find this is why I wanted to go that route, because I think like when you get to the Sky Chase Zone where you're doing the on-rail shooter portion, almost kind of like a very light version of Panzer Dragoon, I didn't find it as twitchy. And I think that's actually something that you find in a lot of ports of Sega games from the Dreamcast, just a lot of ports of Sega games in general. Now, I can't compare. I'm not going to say that that's accurate because I did not compare. But like, take a game like Monkey Ball, which is notorious for not having the same controls on every port after the GameCube version. It's just not as accurate. But is Sonic twitchy? Regardless, even on the Dreamcast, I found him to be extremely twitchy, but I didn't find it to be hypersensitive all of the time. I think there was some nuance in controls using it on original hardware with the controller to be intended to be used on the Sega Dreamcast. But I cannot confirm any comparison to an Xbox 360 version or Steam version or anything like that.
Sure.
Keith?
A little bit of trivia here. Many prototype images from the Dreamcast were reused for the promotion of Sonic Adventure DX : Director's Cut. On that on-rails section, because I do watch Games Done Quick. That's what it's called, right?
GDQ.
Why does it sound weird when I say it out loud? GDQ. I have seen Sonic Adventure runs, and during that on-rail shooting section, and I only know this because I've watched people play this game and speedrun it. You can go, I think if you put Sonic and Tails, if you put the plane in the upper right-hand corner, you can just sit there and nothing will hit you. Like you just go off and make a cup of coffee or whatever and just wait for the entire thing to play out all by itself.
Well, you have to do some damage to the boss or else it doesn't end.
No,
you can make it through the level. Well, one of them, you actually have to kill a boss because there's two of them.
Oh, yeah, that's right. No, but I'm talking about like the other.
The second one, yeah, but not the first one.
Yeah.
Yeah, not the first one.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I mean, that's a cool fact.
Yeah.
It doesn't like change. It doesn't change my opinion of how awful it controls.
That's what I'm saying. That's how it sucks. It sucks.
It's not great. It does break up the action. And this is what I think this kind of goes to Shane's point too, is where like there are a lot of ideas and they tried to break up the action. They tried to provide some variety, which is something that like 3D platformers weren't doing like particularly well in regardless. I think even if you go to Super Mario 64, which is kind of like your seminal 3D platformer at the time, maybe you want to say Banjo-Kazooie or Banjo-Tooie by this point. I think that had been out as well, or is about to come out, or even Rayman 2. Like what they do at their core, they were doing well. I would argue that they were doing it better than Sonic at its core. But even when they tried to vary it up, it had mixed results. And the thing that sticks out most in my mind is trying to fly with Mario in Mario 64. That's dog shit. Like it's
it's a pain in the ass.
It's fucking terrible. So like when you try to add a little bit of variety at this time, like there are still people trying to figure it out in terms of how do we incorporate this different playing style into our 3D platformer, because that's not just the flying that's a little off. And I think the flying isn't bad personally, but I think like when you go to the go-kart stage, that feels like there's no attachment to the stage whatsoever. It doesn't, it's like it's horrible in terms of the go-kart stage. I like the music. Music's good. And we'll talk about that too.
See, okay. You know, what's funny about that though? Is like, I actually, I did a couple of runs to get, I did it on accident once, and then I was like, fuck it, to get like slightly better times on that go-kart like race run. And after like 2 or 3 times of running through it, I actually got a handle on the controls, and like you can use the brakes to do some pretty decent like drifting around corners and stuff. So surprisingly, it actually works okay. I'm not saying it's great, like by any sort of like karting game or racing game standard, but I actually didn't have as huge an issue with that one.
Why was that the one part of the game that you really liked?
Dude, no, it's not the only one, actually. I actually really like the Sonic pinball section in the casino, too. But.
I was about to talk about that, too. That's fun, but like the game's not exactly clear on what you're supposed to do. They're just like, yeah, go get coins and shit. And you could be in that casino level forever.
It also doesn't control super well either.
No.
Because like I see what they were trying to do, but it's also kind of funny because it's all, how do I put this? Obviously it's all in engine, but like it very much feels like they just pulled the camera out and threw Sonic like into a thing vertically and was just like, well, I hope this fucking works. And like for the most part, it kind of does, but also the physics and the gravity are a little funky in that. But that aside, I actually liked the pinball section.
This is the first Sonic game to have a different level entrance screen style. The other is Sonic Unleashed. I hate the casino level. It just, after going through all of these like action stages that are really fast paced, they're multifaceted. I think that's one of the great things about the levels in Sonic Adventure is that from Sonic 3, it carries on, I don't know what you want to call it, stage transitions, where it almost feels like you're playing a different stage, even though it is the same zone. So I think that's great. And then you get to the casino level, and the entire game basically comes to a dead stop.
That's kind of true.
It just feels like you're wandering around the hub world, which also the hub world is, it's like really boring. And again, I hate to keep on bringing up Mario 64, but like, running through Peach's castle and finding all sorts of secrets and hidden stages. Sonic Adventure, it just gates you from everything. It's a pretty linear game. And so there's like no point in exploring except for maybe getting some of the upgrades or maybe like the one key you need to find.
They have emblems. I don't know what they do.
Yeah, I don't know what they do either. Even as a kid, I never collected the emblems.
No,
it almost doesn't seem worth it. But also, yeah, I don't know. I wasn't playing Sonic Adventure to complete it. So yeah, there's not a lot of incentive to do any type of exploring, and especially in the casino level where it's like, yeah, you get to play pinball. I wish they just made another Sonic pinball game so I could just play that. And then also just see the bonus round for the Knights references in there. But sorry, it's just really frustrating. It's really frustrating.
So I'm probably,
because I do see the potential. I see what they're going with. Like I see what they're going for, but they just like, they bit off more than they can chew, and they didn't know how to handle it.
No, I think I think what you said there at the last part is a completely fair analysis. I think that's the most accurate analysis that's kind of going on with Sonic Adventure. But I'm going to try and be more positive here, because I did have fun with the gameplay. I had a lot of fun with it, even though I'm not going to sit here and say it's perfect. Like, it's far from it. First of all, I'm happy it's not a fucking collectathon. That goes in its favor. When that was like all the rage of the time, like everything was a collectathon. Get all the stuff. Sonic Adventure doesn't do that to you. Thankfully, thank God. The first half of the Sonic levels, I think, are a lot of fun because they're relatively automated. The platforming isn't too difficult most of the time. As Keith said, lives don't really matter. So if you run out of lives and the game glitches out and whatever the case might be, like, you can get right back into the action. It's like, death isn't that much of a penalty anyway. Here, even if you do die, is because you run into the geometry and you glitch yourself out of the stage, because that will happen at least once while you're playing this, unless you're just incredibly lucky. The later stages, I think, in the Sonic story are where it gets like completely crazy. It's like when they try to be a real game and they try to be more than just Sonic running all over the place. Like they don't know what to do. Especially what's the level that you're like climbing around these damn pillars and you have to, I think it's the final egg zone.
Oh yeah, that's so weird.
That level,
that's such a weird, like, it's tonally so different because like you said, you're doing all this rapid platforming and running and shit, and then they're like, all right, man, now hop from one big ass pillar to other and slowly like creep your way around. Don't get shot.
it's just the last couple of levels of Sonic Adventure in Sonic's story feel like a tech demo. I think that's where it really starts to rear its head, is like, we didn't have enough time to really put everything together the way we wanted it to. So we just kind of rushed it, and here's the product that we have, because it doesn't feel complete. Even though it can be fun, like the first half of it is fun. And I actually find that the other stages that we haven't really talked about are more fun in this than the Sonic stages. I like the more fast paced feeling that you get with the tail stages, that you just got to keep running forward in every single one of them. That encourages you to do a more fast paced kind of experience. Are there as many levels? Are they exploratory? No, but I actually think that they're a ton of fun. Amy's stages are fun because she doesn't like run at breakneck speed. So you go running on the ceiling every single time accidentally by pressing forward. So I appreciate that. Knuckles, we'll talk about Knuckles later. Gamma, I like Gamma's stages. You can say it's a light res or a light shooter or whatever, but like they're fun while you have them. I had a blast with every single one of them. I appreciated them, even though it's still a half-baked idea. That's kind of like a secondary idea that wasn't a main attraction that I thought was actually a ton of fun. And Big the Cat is not good, but it's not as bad as everyone says it is. It's not that bad of a time. I actually kind of enjoyed my time with Big the Cat, and even though I can admit it's kind of shit, but it's not the worst thing on the planet. Insofar as like the thing that I could see the biggest argument coming from is Knuckles, especially in Red Mountain, with that stage just being as massive as it is, because the placement of the crystals are RNG. And there's so many layers to that, and you have to make so many leaps of faith to go down and up that level in order to find what you need to. And that doesn't always work. There's also times I found in Knuckles, especially what I think it's the final exode or whatever it was, where you had to open up doors in order to go into another area, and that's where the crystal was. And it's like, and I fell into geometry in those levels as well. It's like, maybe this wasn't the best gameplay idea. Now, in Sonic Adventure 2, I actually think it's worse from what I remember. I do not remember it being as fun in Sonic Adventure 2, especially with Rouge as well. But the Knuckles ones kind of annoyed me to not a great degree, but some levels like really got under my skin. Like what was their, what the hell are they doing? It's just some of these levels are too big in scope to do a Easter egg hunt with a hot cold kind of indicator that really didn't help most of the time, unless like you're in the general vicinity, and even then it was kind of hit or miss. But overall, like, I had a good time, and I don't think any of them are perfect. I think there's plenty of room for criticism, but I think there's enough room in every single one of them to say like, yeah, there's fun here. There's quite a bit of fun here, even though if some of the levels are just complete garbage. Like there isn't one single campaign I can point to and say it's like the best one, but at the same time, there are levels in each campaign varying on taste where I could be like, yeah, this is actually something that like I am like enjoying myself to a great degree, if that makes sense.
I don't know who hurt you, Chris, but I hard disagree with like all of that shit.
Well, you can
disagree
with anything.
I disagree with some of it.
Okay, well, I mostly disagree with just about all of it. To me, I thought almost with the exception of Gamma, I felt that every other campaign for every other character in this game, Sega just went and was like, what's the most annoying fucking game mechanic we can find? And let's make a whole campaign around that. Like, okay, fucking Amy is like RE3 Nemesis. You're just running away from something that tries to kill you. Okay, that's cool, I guess. We have Tails, where it's like, you gotta race Sonic for the Emerald. Why? Narratively, that makes no goddamn sense, but you're doing it. And also, if you lose, you do the whole thing over again. Fuck you. Okay, cool. I like having that kind of anxiety in my gameplay. Fun. All right, let's talk about Big the Cat. A shit fishing game. Cool. All right. Bass Pro Fishing. It is not. Fantastic. Knuckles. Let's do a hot cold meter and then hide things randomly every time. and then put them in stages that are way too big for their own damn britches. What the fuck? Every gameplay mechanic,
I think we agreed on Knuckles.
Like, sure, yeah, we agree on that, but I hated the core mechanic of every single one of those campaigns. It's like I said, with the exception of a freaking escort mission, it's like they hit the bullet point list of all of the game mechanics that I fucking despise.
No quick time events, unfortunately.
Oh, that's true. Okay, 2. There you go.
According to the Sonic Adventure Manual in North America, Dr. Eggman is a feminist. However, this is a translation. So I'm gonna push back. I'm gonna kind of push back and kind of not on the Knuckles thing. Okay. So I'm gonna circle back around to what I asked at the beginning of the gameplay section, and how, in what other way could you translate the mechanics, the gameplay of 2D Sonic to 3D? And I gotta kind of ask the same thing about Knuckles, because the gimmick with Knuckles originally was that he can glide and climb up stuff, and in those games, and even I think even in parts of Sonic 2, when you attached the and Knuckles portion of Sonic and Knuckles, they accounted for that. You'd find secrets, power-ups, bonus levels, and so on and so forth. And so, yeah, how do you translate Knuckles mechanics into a Sonic built stage? And you really can't with the stages that they design here. And so that's why, okay, so now we make these small little sandboxes of what were these larger Sonic stages. And this is where I'm going to kind of disagree with you, Chris. I think the Red Mountain stage is probably like the best way to utilize that kind of, what did you call it? The
hot and cold
the
mechanic.
Searching. Yeah, the hot and cold mechanic, where it's like, okay, this is big enough and there's enough going on in this stage. Whereas all of the other stages, to me, I thought they were almost too small. And the fact that like you could just hit the floaty orb and the orb will be like, the crystal's right here, and just take you directly to it. So it's like, well, okay, they're not very challenging. Whereas I feel like, I don't know, I liked the challenge that the Red Mountain area was just so big that it was like, okay, I actually have to look for these things. And so I think that part of Knuckles' campaign was like implemented well. The rest of it, I was just kind of like, even as a kid, I was a Knuckles fan. I love Knuckles. But like and even just the characterization of Knuckles, period, from this point on, they were just kind of like, oh, I guess Knuckles is just a dumb idiot. I don't know if there are Knuckle fans out there, but that's just not how I saw Knuckles. I never saw him as like this dumb idiot up until this game. And that's just kind of who he became. And as the whole scavenger hunt, that was the word I was looking for before, mechanic, is just kind of like, oh, this is just kind of what he amounts to. I'm not actually gliding through these other stages, the Sonic stages, finding hidden areas and all that stuff. And again, to the Sonic gameplay, you can do plenty of that. There's a lot of like quote unquote game breaking things that developers intended with Sonic's mechanics to reach different parts of the stage that you otherwise might not be able to. But yeah, as far as the other characters go, I mean, and I already talked about the casino zone. Just Big the Cat, again, it's just a campaign that brings the entire game to a fucking halt. And they don't even explain to you the fishing mechanics. I had to fucking look up how to fish with Big the Cat. And then I'm like, oh, you mean I can just jump into this lake? Oh, wait, I can't actually just go grab the frog with my fucking bare hands. I have to still fish for him, even though I'm like right above him. Are you fucking kidding me? It's not good. Yeah, just cut out the Amy and Tails stuff. Like, it doesn't really need to be in there. Most of Tails' campaign is literally just what we had seen in Sonic.
Yeah.
And his mechanics are just like, you just got to race Sonic, I guess, which also is like, I don't know, if Tails is faster than Sonic, doesn't that make Sonic less special?
Yes.
Like, Sonic's main characteristic is his speed, but Tails is faster.
Don't think about it too much.
Yeah, he has boosting rings. Sonic doesn't have those.
I mean, that brings in that whole argument of like, why the fuck did they give them like vehicles and shit later? Like, what?
We're not there yet.
Yeah, no.
Not even Sonic R did that. That's one thing it did right. I don't know. I've said my piece. I like the Tails levels. I like the Amy levels. I know I'm getting hate for it. I think that you make a good point in that if they had implemented the Tails levels differently and not just made it like just riding around on like just aligning it with the
At
Sonic
the speed
narrative.
of sound.
Yeah, riding around at the speed of sound. That's a Sonic Adventure 2. But if it was more something that was separate from the Sonic timeline and he was doing his own thing, like for all of his levels, I think it would have been a lot better. Or there would be some, yeah. I think it would be, but if I look at like strictly from a gameplay standpoint, I thought those levels were fun. And I had a good time with it. Like the narrative, I can disconnect my brain for a Sonic game without much of a problem. So it doesn't really bother me when the narrative makes absolutely zero sense. I think Keith make a good point where it's like you're racing Sonic. Like at that point, why? It does make him less special. And if it was kind of more like a side story where it didn't really matter, then I think that'd be acceptable. It's kind of like Luigi beating Mario. It's just, that's kind of cool from time to time. But when you make it part of the main narrative and you have to complete it in order to see the main ending, I think that does kind of ruin the specialness of it. I will agree with you on that one.
As far as the gameplay goes for Tails, I mean, it's like the same thing you'd say for like the couple early Kirby games where it's like, yeah, you could just fly through this entire level and not interact with anything. That's exactly what the Tails levels are. You're just flying through it. It's like one of the only campaigns that you are still playing the same Sonic state. Not all of them, but for most of them, you are playing basically the exact same stage as Sonic. But except as Tails, you're just flying right through it. You're just flying right through it. Would you just fly through a Kirby level?
Yeah.
No.
If I could.
Yeah.
But it's just defeating the point where it's just like, why even have this if all I'm doing is just avoiding everything and going straight to the goal? Whether I have to get there before Dr. Robotnik or before Sonic. I'm just skipping the level. Why even have a level here? Why even have the campaign?
Why even have a game? Honestly.
Also, the final stage, the very, very final stage, it's fun, it's difficult, but it's basic as fuck.
I know this is going back to story and plot, but like Robotnik just wanted like this one city. He was like, I'm going to take over Philadelphia.
Okay, shit. I know we're going to get off of traffic like on a tangent here, but like,
I'm sorry.
But hold on. I think you bring up a good point. Can we talk about the massive amount of fatalities that happen that just kind of get dismissed?
Yeah. Yeah. What happened to Station Square?
Like they're all dead. Millions of people just died. And they're like, Sonic, the power of friendship. Millions of people, like this entire, like everybody's dead. Water is coming out of skyscrapers and flooding the city, which you saw were populated. They're all gone. This is a metropolis that is just like people have been drowned to death. And Sonic's chilling with some like ancient echidna talking about the power of the spirits or whatever. Yeah, go kill this giant
Chris,
chaos monster.
This is why you get the president and eventually Gun. There's an organization only known as Gun involved in the Station Square incident.
I love that the president has a fucking photo of Sonic on his desk, but anyway, that's for a different time. My next comment about that kind of breaks off into the presentation, which maybe is a good segue anyway. I don't know.
Let's just move into it.
Just like, why the fuck did they decide to place Sonic and pals, anthropomorphic creatures, in a world with real people? And this is what they go with for an extended period of time with Sonic games, where it's just a motherfucking blue hedgehog standing next to a man in a business suit and no one bats an eye. Like, why? What choice why was that made? That's like, Keith, you brought it up earlier where it's just like, yeah, Station Square is like really bland, right? It is, because it's just a normal fucking city Like, why would you do that when you have such a colorful cast of characters and it's a game series that is known for its vibrancy? Why in the absolute fuck would you set it in a drab ass gray and brown cityscape? That boggles my mind.
I think
I don't think I wouldn't call it gray and brown.
Back in the day, it was fucking jarring. I think that was one of the other things that rubbed me the wrong way when the game was initially released. But now, how many years has it been? Don't tell me. Don't answer that.
25.
In 2024, Jesus Christ. Yeah, in 2024, it's like I don't even bat an eye at it at this point. When you just look at all of the games that have been released, and there's animals amongst humans and aliens amongst humans and whatever, it just almost seems like normal at this point. But yeah, I mean, back then, going from Sonic 1, 2, and 3, which were like wholly original and had these very creative locales and interesting settings and all the stuff, to just, it's Philly.
Yeah.
With just like, the people waiting at the bus stop and like the homeless person on the piece of cardboard in the canal or whatever.
You know what would be weirder? If they took anthropomorphic turtles and put them in New York amongst regular people and a giant rat.
Good point.
Right, Shane?
They are stylistically presented the same, though.
Oh, of course they are. Yeah, they sure are.
But
or if you took a portly Italian plumber and put him with a giant turtle mutant and mushrooms and stuff like that, that would also be really weird.
Okay, yes, I see what you're trying to get at here, but again, I say stylistically it's consistent. This is not. You have fucking bright ass colored Sonic and all of his anthro friends, and then you have drab man in business suit. Like, they're not even tonally consistent. That's the thing that bothers me. Like, if it was everything had the same art style, I would not even be bringing this up. But the fact that it doesn't, and it's like they just dropped, it's like it's a fucking isekai, right? Like, they just drop Sonic and friends into air quotes the real world. Like, it's weird. It's a weird choice.
I mean, is this what, like, we're just going to say we're in the graphics here. I just want to say overall, I think the graphics are fantastic, but I do think, a point you make here, well, for the time, I'm going to say for the time, I think that for the time, the graphics are fantastic, but like the NPCs, like the humans, their character models.
Oh, they're fucking trash.
They are. Did they get them from the 32X? I don't know. They are horrible. They are
a grand total of like 10 polygons per person.
Yes, they look like early people models for 3D, like, just presentation. They look terrible, man. But all like the characters, like Sonic and friends, all the enemies, the main people they want you to care about, I think they look utterly fantastic for the time period.
As long as they're not talking.
True. But like, they're
like fucking Sonic's eyebrows are their own character.
Okay, but like, also at the time, how many games were implementing dialogue like that?
Right, but you didn't have to move his face that way, Chris. I'm just saying, like, that was a choice they made.
They were still learning, and I'll give them that, like the very accentuated way that they talked. But if you put it on the Japanese voice tracks, it actually lines up and syncs and makes a lot more sense. So I think there is that. The English, I mean, if you put it with the English voice actors, it doesn't make a lot of sense at all. It looks completely cheesy and terrible. But I'm not necessarily going to knock it for its graphical presentation. Has it aged the best? No. They made some choices that were not always the greatest, like the canopy over whatever that area is where you have to run around and find like Dr. Eggman's base, and like the forest.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you're getting into that forest, that canopy looks like a straight slaughtered JPEG. Oh, like a big green JPEG over everything. It looks awful. And there's kind of times that are like that, but like, yeah, 2D modeling in this game is not the best whatsoever when they have like their attempt at pre-rendered backgrounds, even if you have blue skies and stuff like that. If you really take a look at it, it's not good looking. But when they do put their efforts into 3D models, I think that graphically, especially for 1999, it's a very good looking game. I think it, for the most part, holds up. Of course, it looks like a piece of its time, but I think visually it's not terrible. It's not bad at all. Actually, I'm not even saying not terrible. It's not a bad looking game. What do you think, Keith?
I pretty much agree with everything both of you have said, essentially. Yeah, I mean, some of the talking animation is off. It doesn't really bother me that much. I think it's kind of funny. And again,
it doesn't matter.
10 months.
Saying it doesn't matter.
Where are you going with this? I'm not sniffing what you're stepping in, Chris.
It's one of the songs, which if anyone has any,
of course you. I think the game
doesn't matter. Anyway,
you're a real Sonic fan. There's got to be someone here. Yeah, I think the game looks pretty damn good. I still think it holds up graphically. I mean, aside from just, again, some of the little bit of jankiness in the animations or whatever. And yeah, like I said, tonally with the NPCs and stuff, it's whatever.
Yeah, it's whatever, Shane. Should we get into the music?
Yep, okay, sure.
Grow up, Shane.
Are we ready to get into
I did, and maybe that's why I have my opinions about this game.
God.
But yeah, go on.
All right, let's get into the sound design for this.
Fucking rocks. Butt rock, baby. Woo!
All right, finally. Okay, we're on some positive vibes here. I'm with Shane. Music is great. Love it. Crush 40 is fantastic. The overall music direction. Who's the name of the composer when it's not Crush 40? I'm gonna pull this up here. While I'm looking that up,
nobody fucking cares. It's Crush 40, baby. That's all that matters.
There's three composers.
Okay.
All of which I'm going to completely butcher.
Great.
Kumatani Fumi.
Jun Senoue.
Okay, yeah. Jun Senoue, yeah.
Senoue. I see. I'm butchering it too, so it's okay. Senoue, Jun Senoue, Kenichi Takoi, and Fumie Kumatani were all the composers. But the lead one was Jun. Name I don't want to say it again. But that's aside from Crush 40. So the themes that play when you're not getting vocals. So Shane's all about the butt rock. I'm all about the butt rock. I'm about Crush 40. I think it's great. Keith, you love Crush 40?
I'm glad you guys think it's great. As far as all of the music that's not Crush 40, I mean, that's the best part of a lot of Sonic games is the soundtrack. Crush 40, hey, I don't want to give away my final thoughts here, but, much like a lot of Sonic games, it's just not for me, Yeah. There's something about Crush 40 where, like, when I booted this game up for the first time in like 25 years or whatever, all of a sudden that guitar riff starts playing. I'm like, oh, fuck. Like, all right, I could get down with this. And then all of a sudden the singer starts coming. Like, the lyrics are so fucking cheesy. The fucking power butt rock. I feel like I'm instantly transported to the state fair waiting in line for a deep fried hot dog while like some cover band like Crush 40 is playing in the background or something.
Such a good feeling.
Hell yeah, brother.
That's so good. Get some elephant ears, man, at the Walworth County Fair.
They've gathered a crowd of people with like affliction shirts and like the dazzle denim jeans,
Ed Hardy gear.
Yeah. It's just, yeah, Crush 40. God bless them. God bless them. I'm happy Sonic has basically employed them and gave them paychecks for the past 25 years. But yeah, they found their gig. It's not for me. But yeah, otherwise, I mean, the music, I mean, Emerald Coast is a fucking banger. I mean, honestly, the game totally front loads everything into Emerald Coast, and then you don't really need to go beyond that.
I think the entirety of the soundtrack's actually great top to bottom. I think Emerald Coast it's an iconic song. It really is. I think for Dreamcast fans, if this was your first console, if this was your first encounter with Sonic, I think Emerald Coast is right up there with Green Hill Zone. It's not. I'm not going to go so far as to say it's as iconic, because of course it's not. But for a lot of those people, it's comparative, because that's the first stage you go to. You got the whale, you got everything, and I think that's like a big nostalgia driver.
Oh, Speed Highway is another
one of the. I think Speed Highway. I think I listened to it. That's a fantastic track. You're right, Keith. But in terms of the Twilight go-kart stages, One of them's a remake of the Quartet theme, which blew my mind. Like, no one would think to remake the Quartet theme, but it's there in Sonic Adventures. Like, it's right there. There's little Easter eggs in this soundtrack as well. I'm just like, this is so fucking cool, man. Aside from the Crush 40. So top to bottom, if we're just talking soundtrack, I think it's great. And if before I talk about anything else, I'll let you talk about the soundtrack, because like there is voice acting and stuff, so we can get to that in a little bit.
I'm ready to jump into voice acting because I think the voice acting is applicable to the type of writing and game this is. I've heard worse voice acting, but of course then you get some deliveries like oh no.
It's perfect.
Like, I don't know.
That's
man.
perfect.
They were just like, cut it. That's exactly what we needed.
How is it? It's like when Sonic, like when he, inevitably falls into a void many, many, many times, and he's just like, no. Like that's the whole take. Just no.
His mouth will move in 3 different directions while he says no, though.
Just like a Godzilla movie.
Pretty much.
What would you rather want? Just a really long, painful, prolonged.
Would I want to hear him suffering? Yes, probably. But I mean, at least have it be accurate to what's going on. Like if you're falling to your death, I'm pretty sure 9 times out of 10 your response is not just going to be no.
So you want him to be like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god.
Oh my god, I can't stop. I can't stop.
What sound does the hedgehog make when you torture it? I think that's what you should be playing. Does it squeal? Like, that's it. You could get the voice actor to do that. Probably a lot better than I just did.
Listen, I'm just saying that some of these things feel like they just took the first take and they're just like, yeah, we don't have enough money for the studio today, so fuck it.
It's not that bad.
They had 10 months.
Listen, that for the American localization.
We're gonna keep going. We're gonna keep going back to that whole 10 months chestnut.
They had 10 months.
2 months for the American localization, essentially. Well, when did they release it? December, and then they flew the team over. They're like, oh fuck. So they had like 4 or 5 months.
The thing is like apart from just harping on a few things just to be funny, honestly, for the most part, it's fine.
It is.
I think it sounds fine. Like I think the voice acting, especially for the time, is generally not that bad.
If you're thinking that this is a kids game and this is like essentially a Saturday morning cartoon, then this is a Saturday morning cartoon from the late 80s, early 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just as comparable to that. So it's fine.
Yeah.
Keith, go ahead. I know I kind of stepped over you there.
No, you took the words right out of my mouth.
Oh, sweet. See, just stopped all over your idea. Anything else we want to say about the sound? Because I think everything else sounds fine in terms of sound effects and whatnot.
I will say, going back to the music, and this also works in tandem with the voice acting, I can't fucking hear anything over this fucking awesome guitar riff that's happening. The fucking
the mixing,
the sound levels are so the mixing is so fucking off.
Yeah,
it's
yep. I had the same problem.
It's really bad.
I mean, I think you can adjust it, right?
No,
pretty sure you can adjust it.
No,
maybe that's in the DX version. Okay, because yeah, no, for sure. And it's so like it's if you really sit there and like think about it for a second, it's so like off-putting and weird for, like Sonic and Tails to be standing poolside having a chat about like his plane or whatever, and there's just this ripping guitar riff just be like you can barely hear what Tails is trying to say the whole time.
I didn't think it was that bad because I did hear I heard something at some point. I can't specifically remember where I heard it. Keith talked about it with some other people about the mixing before, so I knew this point would be brought up and it got my mind going. There are also times where the sound just cuts out. Like, yep. I don't think the mixing is particularly bad because I paid an ear to that. So like I did not think it was horrible. But there are times that the sound should be playing and it just cuts out for no reason. It'll be silent for no reason whatsoever. And there are times where you have voice samples where the bit rate isn't consistent with every other character's voice sample bit rate. And you can tell that the quality is not up to snuff. So you want to say if that's a mixing problem, I'll 100% agree with you. but you can tell that some voices are compressed. And that was, for me, that was especially noticeable with Takal. Like her voice quality was significantly lower than all the other characters' voice takes. And that was just something like, oh, wow, this sounds a little bit more grady, and you can tell the quality is a little bit lower than what Sonic is saying. And that does kind of take you out of the game, even at the most generous at times for any voice acting or sounds, as if you can like easily tell another sample is not the same quality as everything else. It feels really awkward and off, and not in a good way. Like it feels cheap. And if you want to go back to the like 10 months thing, yeah, sure. Yeah, not all voice samples were equal for 100%.
Well, and I think, unless I'm mistaken, there were at least 2 or 3 times I can think of where a character's mouth moved and no voice came out.
They were stunned.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, it's not like they totally just looked directly at another character and moved their mouth and nothing happened. But yeah, I mean, all right, sure. I will say though that I definitely noticed the balancing thing. Like I wasn't just bringing it up because Keith mentioned it. Like it was very apparent to me too that there were several cutscenes where like the music was just imposing itself over everything else.
All right, that concludes our portion of the sound, which means it's time to roll into our patron notifications. What are the patron notifications? It's where our patrons get to sound off in our Discord, letting us know what they thought of the game du jour, and you can provide that as well if you want to by joining our Patreon for as little as $1. Just heading over to our Discord and participating in that conversation when it comes up. And I let all the patrons know when that is. And this week, we have our pontifications, starting out with Matt, aka Stormageddon, and they are from the quote fun unquote and games podcast, as well as the Reignite podcast. And Matt says, I adore this game. I played it for the first time on the Dreamcast at a friend's place when it came out, but wouldn't get a copy of it for myself till the DX version on the GameCube. This game has a bad rap and exaggerated issues. It's far from perfect, but its flaws have been greatly blown out of proportion. I replayed it again just a few months back, emulated it on my Steam Deck, the Dreamcast version, and it absolutely holds up. I love the cheesy voiceover and the story. The music still slaps, especially Open Your Heart by Crush 40. Even the Big the Cat stages that I dreaded were barely an inconvenience this time through. It's not my favorite 3D Sonic game, but it's definitely in the top 5. Open your heart. It's gonna be all right. Thank you, Matt.
All right. Next up, we have Alt, who says Sonic Adventure is perfectly fine. It gets a bad reputation due to some janky physics, like, yes, spin dashing will send you into outer space or give you whiplash from the camera, but I genuinely believe apart from that, the game is still really enjoyable. I prefer Sonic Adventure 2, but that mostly comes down to the fact that Big the Cat exists. I've not played the original Sonic Adventure as I've never played a Dreamcast, so I'm not really sure what's different. Well, fun fact, Big the Cat's there too. Sonic music is always great. I like this Sonic voice actor more than the newer one. There's nothing offensive to me about this game in an era where 06, Secret Rings, and other much worse Sonic games exist. If you want more, play Spark the Electric Jester 2 and 3 for Sonic Adventure vibes. I may actually take you up on that. Less jank, same idea. If you like daytime stages in Unleashed, it'll appeal to you as well. Thank you, Alt.
All right. So we have Tony G, the Wolfman. Oh, in the words of Crush 40, quote, ancient cities, blazing shadows, keep attacking little children, crying confusion, hopeless anger, end quote. Is that an actual lyric?
I think so.
Those
The
are
song?
lyrics.
That's
Yep,
lyrics.
They are.
Holy shit. Put that in your chili dog pipe and smoke it.
Oh, right.
I don't know how to take that. I don't know. I don't know.
Thank you, Tony G. All right, next we have Soha, our resident Xenoblade Chronicles X enjoyer. Soha says, as far as I know, this is the Sonic game that started pivoting Sonic soundtracks towards butt rock. That's all I know. Thank you, Soha.
That's all you need to know, honestly. All right, we have Lucas, of a Game Over Hell on the YouTube, who says, I first played Sonic Adventure as my first 3D Sonic game a few years ago when I decided to play every single Sonic game I could access one after another to give the series a chance and try to understand why some people like Sonic. Eventually, I got to Adventure DX. I hated it. It was glitchy. I'd get stuck in weird locations. Characters couldn't run straight. The alternate gameplay styles sucked, and levels were way too short. I decided to give the game another shot after I was done with Colors and Generations, and somehow, it just clicked. See, once you learn to play around with the physics of the spin dash and doing the right long jumps and the level layouts become intuitive, this game is almost like a tiny sandbox for what 3D Sonic should have been in terms of freedom of movement. The game is still not as polished as it should be, and the alternate playstyles are subpar at best, but on account of mastering Sonic's gameplay alone, I keep going back to this more than any of the other 3D entries. Replaying the levels to do another skill jump and skip chunks of the level you couldn't before is a blast. Also, Junichi Kanemaru is the best Sonic voice actor. He just fits Sonic's character like a freaking glove. He can even speak English. Trust me, turn the fucking voices to Japanese in 3D Sonic games and listen for yourself. Thank you, Lucas.
I actually agree with the Japanese voice acting part. It actually makes the entire game a lot better, even with the graphical syncing.
I'm really surprised nobody mentioned the Chow. We didn't even mention
the Chow because it's inconsequential. Nope. It's fun, but it's inconsequential.
I will say the Chow, better mascot than Sonic.
Yeah.
Ooh. Okay. We're all just in agreement on that. All right, sure.
Yeah. All right.
I like the Chow. There's no point in doing any of it. I'll be real. Even though it's fun.
Not in this game.
No.
I think apparently in Sonic Adventure 2, it's a lot more in depth.
I think so, yeah. Like there's just absolutely no point in doing anything with the Chow Garden other than just distract yourself and play with the VMU.
Well, good.
That's about it.
I couldn't get mine to work with my VMU. Maybe that's user error, possibly.
Battery probably.
Gotta get the damn thing in there.
Battery probably drained as soon as you put it in. That's how the VMUs.
That's what she said.
Hey, just died. Flaccid. Speaking of flaccid, does this game hold up today? As we have, as tradition indicates, myself and Shane are going to go first before we give the guest the final word. And because I want to start off probably on the positive note, and everyone else can slag off the game from here on out, because Shane said I would be surprised, so I am curious, but I'm going to start out with the power of positivity and say mostly. I know that I'm going to get big disagreements. I had fun. I had fun with this game. And isn't that what this game ultimately, when you look at the design concepts and what's supposed to be going on, isn't that what this game is supposed to accomplish? If you're asking me if it's going to hold up, if it's perfect, no. If you're asking me if it has its problems, oh yeah, it has problems. It has a lot of problems. But like the problems are, when they happen for me, they're almost comical instead of like mindlessly frustrating. It just kind of went along with the game, which isn't necessarily a good thing. But like I enjoyed it overall. Like I walked away from my experience and I was like, this is still a fun time in spite of everything that is wrong with it. I guess that's really where I'm going to leave it. I want to say it holds up. It's not going to be for everybody. It's not going to be something that you're going to say is a 10 out of 10 mind-blowing masterpiece of an experience, but it is a time capsule, and it is something that I think that even the most like jaded video game player can at least smile at. And I think if you as a game player can look at it and smile and walk and take that to heart, open up your heart, as Matt said, it'll be all right. Then I think that in some element, in some facility, that a game does hold up. And I take that away from Sonic. I know I'm extremely biased in this in this saying because Sonic Adventure has been such a big part of my life personally. But yeah, 100% Sonic holds up. Even though like just anticipate some rocky, very, very rocky moments, because you will get them. Shane.
All right, so it would be very easy for me to be incredibly dismissive and just say, nah, man, this game fucking blows and just be done with it. But I'm not going to do that because I did find myself wanting to go back and keep playing, which says a lot because there are definitely games that we've talked about on this show where I have had to force myself to sit down and keep playing it for the sake of talking about it in an episode. I did not have to do that with this game. So I think that alone speaks volumes that I genuinely looked forward to sitting down and continuing to play up to a certain point. And that's where I'm going to kind of temper some of this. In my assessment of does it hold up, generally I'm going to say no, not really. Even with the DX version, and I mean, you if you happen to get it on PC, I mean, you can go out there, get some, fan made patches and things like that to try to make it better. So that may help. But if we're just talking just the game as it is, it's kind of hard to recommend because from my point of view, I don't think there's anything really worth playing past Sonic's campaign. I really don't. I don't see the value in anything else. Like all of the other characters, they picked like one gimmick and stuck with it for the entirety of each of their little mini campaigns. And I don't particularly think any of those gimmicks are very good. So I found myself unironically enjoying this game through the vast majority of Sonic's portion. I got very frustrated in a few sections, particularly in the later levels, because they do just get unnecessarily convoluted and confusing. And also just the control jank and then a lot of the, terrain glitches do make things more frustrating than they need to be. But I saw what they were trying to do. Like what Keith and I said earlier in the episode, I did genuinely see what they were trying to accomplish here. And I really do wish that they had had more time to make that vision a reality, because when the game is working the way that it's intended, it is actually fun. It really, truly is. But there are just too many things that detract from that experience. Like anytime I found myself having a good time, it wasn't too long until I ran into something that made me just go, oh, God, fucking why, man? Whether it was Sonic just for no reason at all taking a hard turn when he's running and then launching himself into fucking space for no reason, or overshooting a jump when the game was actually controlling you that entire time, and then it just drops you in a place that is your death because apparently you were supposed to know that and move, but then other times you're not. You're supposed to let Sonic just fall where he's supposed to go or whatever. Just shit like that. If those things were ironed out, man, there's a good like core here, and I just genuinely wish that they had the time to really polish it up, because I think this could have been so much of a better game. But as it is now, I really can't recommend playing it. And I'm sorry to all the Sonic Adventure fans, because I know we have a lot of them, obviously. But yeah, it's rough.
All right. I hate you, Shane. Keith.
Sonic Adventure was listed in the book 1001 Video Games You Must Play Before You Die. I did not write that book.
Oh.
Because I don't think you need to play Sonic Adventure before you die. Yeah, it's kind of heartbreaking that there's just so many little things. It's death by a million paper cuts with this game. I'm just going to kind of reiterate some of the stuff that Shane was talking about. I mean, what I recommend this game, I would recommend it if you're 10 years old. I would recommend it if you were 10 years old when you first played this game. But I mean, just coming into it raw, I mean, it's not a great experience. And I think, you could probably play the Sonic campaign and just kind of be done with it, if I'm honest. Because the
Agreed.
more you play it, the more you start seeing the flaws in the level design and what they were attempting to do with the multiple characters. I just don't think, again, they had 10 months. They didn't have enough time to actually fully flesh out those ideas. And I don't even know if their Dreamcast would be capable of handling the big ideas that they had for this game. So, you know, I love weird video games, and I love it when video games really try and take a crack at something that nobody else is doing. And Chris brought this up earlier, and that in an era when every 3D platformer was just trying to be Mario 64, Sonic Adventure is not trying to be Mario 64. And so for that, I give it all the credit in the world. I really do appreciate what they were trying to do. It's just, it feels like they fumbled the ball every bit of the way. And it shows the more you play it outside of Sonic's campaign. And you're going to run into some of the glitches and stuff that we've been talking about, but it's not enough to, I don't think it's enough to really ruin the experience of that one campaign. So, yeah, I'm kind of in the middle here, but also kind of like, yeah, I think you could probably skip Sonic Adventure.
Is that a main quest light not recommend?
That is a light not recommend, yes.
Okay. Got to bring it back to your show because it doesn't grace our ear holes as much as it used to. And we all
I'll also say, hey,
it.
it's okay to like a video game. Sonic fans don't get mad at me.
There you go.
I totally like this game.
I love that. Bring back that main quest flavor. And everyone, you may hear it again soon. So pay attention to our podcast. It's great. Speaking of which, thank you, Keith. Unfortunately, shocker that you did not say that Sonic Adventure did not hold up today. I could not see that coming at all. But thank you for joining us today on the podcast. It's been great having you.
Thanks for having me.
It's always great having you too.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. But let people know, speaking of the main quest, I know you do not do that as often, really. But where can people find you on the internet?
Oh, I'm all over the place. I mean, my social media stuff has been dead for the most part. I've kind of chimed in on Twitter like once every 3 months, and I haven't posted on Instagram in fucking forever. But you can find me there, and you can find links to previous episodes that I've done. Main Quest Podcast, it's on all of the podcasting platforms. You can also hear me on King of Games 96 as part of that. And thank you guys again for having me on that as well.
Absolutely.
And yeah, I mean, look forward to an all new, I guess I was going to say season, but look forward to the revitalization of Main Quest Podcast next year. And I will say that I'm going to give you a scoop. The first episode is going to be a Sonic game. The first episode back. I won't say which one.
Starting strong.
Yeah.
There's some hot anticipation right there. Oh, hell yeah. That's going to be great. Well, I guess this is the time on Sprockets on which we dance. So Shane, how about you carry us out?
All right. Well, if you've made it this far, whether you are a Sonic hater and you were just like, man, there's too much positivity here, or Sonic Adventure was just a integral part of your childhood and you are just seething. If you made it here, then hi. We hope you did enjoy the episode one way or another. And if this happens to be your first time, I am here to tell you that, boy, do we have so much more for you to listen to. We are slowly but surely creeping up on 300 releases to this here feed, which is banana pants, but there you have it. That's what happens when you've been doing this thing for almost 10 years, I suppose. And it's all there for you. So you should go check that out if you haven't. And you can find that as well as all our other stuff, whether that is our Patreon, if you'd like to get access to even more bonus content, as well as an exclusive patron channel in our otherwise public and free Discord, the ability to vote on episodes that we will do throughout the year, and other fun stuff, as well as our merch store, our socials, and all those good things in one place, because we make it easy for you. So head on over to Linktree/Retro Hangover. It's linktr.ee/Retro Hangover, and that is where you will discover all of those goodies. And normally, historically, canonically, perhaps even traditionally, I would say that Chris is now responsible for telling you about Twitch, but it is not just Twitch anymore. Oh no. We have expanded, and we are now on both Twitch and YouTube when it comes to our live streams. Chris, what can the people expect from us?
Well, if you head over to Twitch or YouTube, I guess, in our Linktree, wherever you find those things.
So excited.
I'm trying not to be so excited. If you head over there at 9 p.m. Eastern time on Sunday nights, you can see a stream. And because this is almost 2.5 hours now, I really got to check if you're all still there. So when you get there to the streams, how about you tell us whether or not, like, if you put your finger up your butthole and then smell it, or if there's any other part down there or any other area that you just kind of rub around and just try to get a good smell check. And do you like the smell? And if you don't, why you keep doing it? I think these are the conversations that we need to be having in life. And you could partake in that conversation if you choose to. I'm not going to tell you no. If you head over to Twitch or YouTube at 9 p.m. Eastern time on Sunday nights, and we can talk about what your butthole smells like as you interpret it, once you put your finger around your little butthole and rock it.
Don't tell me how big my butthole is.
Okay, you're engorged butthole, little butthole,
Did you
whatever
just
size your
assume
butthole
my
is.
diameter?
Yeah, it's there. For all sorts of reasons, bigger, small, larger, tall. I don't know. So Shane, yeah, streaming.
I feel like at this point he's just doing this on purpose, because I don't think he likes the fact that I've made him our official stream spokesperson. So now he's just trying to tank this at the end of every episode. But
Did
you know
you
what
say
they
taint?
People love their own brand, so there you go.
How aggressive would it be if you walked up to somebody and was like, I have a tall butthole?
Oh, man. All right.
Which direction?
Yes. Well, on that note, we are going to wrap things up here. So, until next time.
Play with your Amy's alimonying butthole joysticks.
Shane here with a quick message. The one rule Chris and I have always gone by regarding advertisements is this. It has to be something we use and can personally vouch for. If you know me, you know I love coffee. And Bones Coffee Company has been my go-to for home brewing for quite some time now. Their small batch beans come in an impressive variety of flavors like Mint Invaders from Chocolate Space, or Electric Unicorn, which I swear tastes exactly like Fruity Pebbles. And the best part? No added sugar or calories involved, just natural flavors infused right into the beans themselves. Build your own sample pack of 5 4-ounce bags to find out which flavors speak to you, or jump in head first with full 12-ounce bags. They've even got K-Cups. Step up your homebrew game with Bones Coffee by visiting bit.ly/RHPBones. That's bit.ly/RHPBONES.